Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, and this is It's a Paul World. We have an exciting interview today. We have Dr. Robert Bob McClure, and he's in beautiful Tallahassee, Florida, and he joins us today. And we're going to go over a few things and talk about what he's going to talk about at Freedom Fest, but a few other things too. We're going to get some really good insights. He's been involved in a think tank for the last 16 years, so that's a lot of thinking. So anyway, I just want to welcome our very special guest, Dr. Bob McClure. Bob, welcome. Glad that you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I guess the way to kick it off is that, what has been going on in this last year? Because I know you're down there in Florida, and maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the things that happened in Florida that didn't happen in the rest of the country and what we might have learned from it, from your experience.
When all of this coronavirus stuff began, and thanks again for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. No one knew across the country kind of what to expect. We had the initial 2 weeks to slow the spread. Everybody thought Anthony Fauci knew what he was talking about. And everybody understood, though, that we were dealing with something that we really hadn't seen before. And so what happened here in Florida is our Governor Ron DeSantis, many of your listeners are very familiar with Governor DeSantis, really kind of took a common sense view of what was in front of him, looked at the data, and the term follow the science has been kind of strained as of lately in the last year or two, but he did follow the science, and really Florida never really closed. I mean, we after the initial 2 weeks, Florida never really closed. We made some smart decisions, and through that got through the virus, and our economy kept moving along.
Now, here's something that none of my listeners know, and obviously Bob cannot possibly know, but during the pandemic or during this, my wife was scheduled to have a heart procedure, and her cardiologist said to us, listen, we don't know what this is. We know it in her diminished state that it would be bad if she gets this. I mean, really bad, potentially fatal. So we took that pretty seriously. I mean, in that case, we were following the cardiologist. And I have a good friend, a mentor of mine who lives in Florida. And I was talking to him and I said, I really got to figure out how to get her the shot as soon as I can. Now, if you could figure out the maze that the state of California put together for getting shots, Bob, if you could figure that out, you could solve like a lot of amazing things, because it was just a jumbled mess. And he said to me, listen, if you can get her to Sarasota, Florida, we can get her a shot within a couple of days. Then you got to wait 3 weeks and then do that.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you know how many hours that drive would be, because I would not put her on an airplane. But that was something we started to contemplate is, should we make a 40-hour journey across the country to go to Florida?
Right.
And we were seriously looking at it. And in fact, she's still on three lists to get callbacks that, the vaccine is ready for you. And we have never gotten a call. So if I hadn't taken an active approach, she would have not gotten it. So I just want to commend you guys in Florida, because, my friend said, you get her to, because he lives in Sarasota, he's going to come and stay at the house, and then we can get her a shot. So everybody's out there. I mean, I saw this up close in person. So that's very interesting. So let's talk about a couple other issues that have popped up, of course, with Florida, and talk about how, because Texas gets all of the big headlines, but is Florida really a free state?
It is. And you see that in every index that's published, best place to start a business, best place to be an entrepreneur, CEO, whatever the index is that's published, free states, rich states, poor states. I'm sure you're very familiar with that as well. Florida's always in the top 3 or 4 with Texas. And it's because we have a 30-year history of advancing freedom. We have a term at JMI that freedom works every time it's tried. And so if you lower taxes and you reduce regulations and you allow the market to work at the granular level, you begin to see all Floridians in this case experience economic prosperity and economic opportunity. And that's what we're after. We're not after equal outcomes. We're after equal opportunity, whether it's through school choice or healthcare access or, the ability to be an entrepreneur and run a small business. And so Florida has a 30-year history of doing those kinds of things. And you see that show up in every index that's ever published about the 50 states.
So what do you think is the one or two things, again, because you're sitting there at a think tank, that people may not know about Florida that they should know, which would surprise them? Because it has a tendency to have the media has a certain way of describing it. So what are the one or two things you think that people should know?
I think the biggest thing that people may not understand about the state of Florida is how widely diverse it is in every area of every matrix that you can come up with. So comparing that to California, our largest county has nearly 3 million people in it, and that would be Miami-Dade County. Our smallest county up in the Panhandle has 10,000 people in it. That's how diverse the state is. We have an international influence. We have obviously a very strong Hispanic influence, but then across the northern part of the state, it's very, very rural, very, very traditionally New South, Jacksonville, parts of Tallahassee, Pensacola. We call it Lower Alabama or South Georgia. And then you have the center of the state, which is very, very agricultural. If you take basically the spine, which is the center of the state, and you start at the Georgia line and you take it all the way down the center of the state to Miami, that is a very rural, agricultural, manufacturing area of the state. And people don't fully realize that in Florida. And I think the diversity of who we are, it's not just Palm Beach, Miami, palm trees and beaches. There's so much more here in the state of Florida.
Excellent. Well, I know you're going to be at FreedomFest. I mean, that's what we got this whole thing kicked off on. And so talk a little bit about what you're going to share at FreedomFest and what sessions you're going to be involved in.
Well, there are a couple of things that I've been fortunate enough to be asked to speak on. One is the future of free speech on college campuses. Florida has been a national leader on this issue. We've passed legislation that allows for the freedom of choice. And what I mean by choice is the freedom of speech on college campuses. We've tied it to taxpayer funding of these college campuses. The legislature recently passed, they asked every state university and state college, which used to be called a junior college, but every state university and college to survey their students to find out if they feel safe speaking freely with the importance of the First Amendment. And so Florida has been a national leader on free speech and protecting free speech and honoring it. So that'll be one panel I'll be working on. The second panel I'll be speaking on is kind of sharing the Florida story. If you look at the 4 or 5 most important issues that kind of drive our current political world, taxes, regulations, education, school choice, healthcare, election integrity, Florida has really been a national leader in every one of these areas. And so sharing that Florida story, sharing with the other 49 states how they can work in their states to advance freedom and opportunity will be my second focus as well.
So how many Freedom Fests have you been to? Sounds like you've been coming to Freedom Fest for a while.
Well, I've been to about 5, and I've been to some of Mark's other conferences that he's done down in the Caribbean. Obviously, that's close to us, so I've been to those as well that Mark has done. So I'm really excited to get back to Freedom Fest. Really excited to head out to that part of our beautiful country and experience kind of what the Black Hills and all of that kind of part of South Dakota. And so looking forward to being there. And it's just a great opportunity to get like-minded people together to have the discussions about the future of our country, because we are really at kind of a cross point in terms of where we head as a nation in the next 2 to 4 years. And so having everyone together at Freedom Fest, sharing ideas, sharing connections and opportunities, I think will be very, very important.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. The thing that I find very interesting about Freedom Fest is that you have all of these different individuals and they have lots of different opinions. So if you're sitting out there right now wondering if everybody's going to be in lockstep, because
Right.
I can tell you that there are certain, we won't mention who those other people are, but there's certain other parties that when you get there, everybody gets their song sheet and their talking points, and that's it. And Freedom Fest, Bob, I don't know what your experience has been, but I have seen people arguing about, Bitcoin or gold or, get rid of the Fed or we need to do this. I mean, you talk about it, it is all over the map, but it is a friendly environment, an intellectually stimulating environment, and a fun environment. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, you have a collection of people who believe in freedom. They don't want to be told what to do. So you're going to have all kinds of different opinions about a whole host of different issues. So over a few adult beverages and maybe some cigars and maybe some other things, it's a great opportunity to get together and share ideas. So I'm just really excited to get out there.
Excellent. All right. I know that you've been the president and CEO of a think tank. Talk a little bit about that think tank, because many of the listeners may not be familiar with the work that you're doing and would like to know more about it and how to find out more about it.
Well, the James Madison Institute is the name of our think tank in Florida, and we are Florida's oldest and largest think tank. We've worked under 6 different governors, or I have personally. We've seen Republicans and Democrats come and go, and yet our focus has remained on policy and advancing freedom at the policy level. So you see that happen in the fact that Florida has one of the lowest tax and regulatory environments in the entire country. We have the largest and most students participating in some form of school choice in the entire country. We have election integrity that has, come a long, long way since the debacle of Bush v. Gore. And so all of those affect individuals. All of those are at the policy level. And so the James Madison Institute is focused on advancing good policy. And so your folks can learn more about JMI at jamesmadison.org, and I'll be out there at Freedom Fest and be happy to chat with any and all folks who want to learn more about the great state of Florida.
Well, I really appreciate it, Bob. And here's where we have to really get some people. If you're sitting on the fence and you're wondering about if you should come or not, realize that Bob is going to make the trip from beautiful Tallahassee. He's going to come up to and of course, as I always tell people, I'm going to give you directions on how to get there. So you don't even need a Google map. Find Interstate 90. And once you find Interstate 90, and from where Bob is, as soon as he gets to Interstate 90, he's just going to head west, because eventually he's going to run into, Rapid City, South Dakota. So that's it. You don't need a Google map if you're coming from there, but all you have to do is find Interstate 90. Should I go west or east? Easy to ask that question, and you'll get there and you'll find it. Bob, tell everybody why they should come to Freedom Fest and really engage with that. And what really is that benefit by doing that?
Because it's one of the best conferences annually where people who share our values, who believe in liberty, who believe in freedom, who believe in being left alone, who believe in kind of the understanding that the principles that have made this nation great are what we need to protect and promote, that we need to think about the next generation. Freedom Fest has really become kind of the go-to conference for those kinds of values, those kinds of principles. And then you take so much, you learn so much there. And I, having been going there for a number of years, I take, dozens of things away that I can then use in my own state and through my own connections and my own relationships. And then the relationships you build nationally, where you can call on folks when you have ideas, when you have problems you're trying to solve in your own area. For all of those reasons, Freedom Fest is the go-to place on a national basis.
And I'm going to add that the beauty of Freedom Fest, and I've been to lots of conferences, I've spoken at events, is that the speakers are available. And as Bob has said, you may have to have in the extended session with an adult beverage and a cigar, but I guarantee you're going to get to be able to talk to people like Bob, and really understand what's going on. And I think it is a fantastic, enriching experience in your life. If you've never gone before, you should come. If you went, a couple of times, it's time to go again. And more
Time to go
importantly,
again.
time
Yep.
to go again. And more importantly is that if you are feeling left out, if you're feeling like it is all collapsing all around you, I think Freedom Fest will give you that breath of fresh air, and in a way that you couldn't get any other way. Bob, any last words before we go? Because I'm excited that, James Madison Institute sounds like you've done a great job in Florida. Hopefully what you can do is you can spread that as the virus was spread, but you can spread that to all the other states so you can get them closer to where Florida is than where they are today. But last words, Bob, before we wrap it up.
Well, I know the freedom movement is, we've taken a few lumps here in the last 6 months or so. It feels like Joe Biden's been president for 15 years already. But I'm here to tell you that Florida is kind of a beacon of hope for the rest of the country. Not because we're here to tell you how to do things in your own state, but just to help you understand that freedom can thrive, and freedom can thrive in diverse states. Freedom can thrive in states regardless of demographics. The left always wants to tell us that demographics are destiny. Somehow that's a cudgel for those of us who love freedom. The reality is demographics are destiny. And that means that freedom moves beyond, or moves into, every single demographic. So I'm coming to South Dakota and Rapid City and Freedom Fest to bring hope and hopefully share some ideas, learn some great things from what other people are doing in other states, and to get together and then move forward.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank our very special guest, Dr. Robert Bob McClure. And when you come to Freedom Fest, go seek out and talk to Bob. Of course, you can always talk to us from It's a Paul World, but go out and listen and go learn from what Bob has been sharing with all of us. And I want to thank Bob for his time and his energy, and more importantly, for what he has done for the state of Florida, and hopefully will do for the rest of us. So with that, I am John Paul Mendoza with It's a Paul World, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you. And the other thing is, make sure you go to James Madison Institute, check them out, see if you want to support them. And you know what? Bob's on the right track.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me.